there's another special feature on the REMOTE1. It's called the power soak. Okay, the power soak actually is built into AMP1, but it's controlled via this REMOTE1. But first we have to make sure you understand what a power soak is. We have to go back to the good old days of the 60s, last century, when people play this kind of amps. You know, they didn't have a gain, they didn't have a master. They were single channel amps most of the time, and they had a volume control. And when you cranked that volume control, you got some nice fat overdrive. The amp on 3 was always clean, but the higher you went, the more overdrive you got. And it's a very specific traditional sound for rock music. And the reason is it was overdriving not only the preamp stage, the first tubes, it was mainly overdriving the power amp stage, because the amps were designed to be clean amps. And this unique kind of character of a power amp saturation is what I was looking for, and many other people also are looking for, especially in the studio. Back in the 80s, last century, people invented the so-called power soak, and this was kind of a resistor array which was deducting the power from the power amp stage. And so you had your 100 watt amp or 50 watt amp, whatever, and you brought in some resistors and changed the output power into heat. So some of the heat was dispersed, and the rest of the remaining power was getting to the speaker. The result was you had a lower volume, so you could survive in another surrounding. In the 60s, you were allowed to have 100 watts on stage and fill the room from the stage. But, you know, this is a problem today. So anyway, the power soak that I have on my AMP1 works in a different way. It actually reduces power inside the power amp section, but it's not using resistors, and it doesn't converts this kind of extra power into heat. This would cause some extra problems which I don't like to have. So the power is cut inside the power amp stage, so it doesn't get out of the amp. But first I have to show you what it sounds like. For instance, I have a clean sound, as you can see, and I will simply crank my master volume on the AMP1. I get it to almost full. Let's say 8 or 9. This will be pretty loud. So maybe you can hear how rich the overdrive is. It's the clean channel, it's very dynamic, and it has a lot of punch, different from preamp. And what I'd like to do now is bring the volume level down, or the power level, so to speak, down by engaging the power soak. Hit the power soak button. Now this is full power, 100 watts, and I will reduce it always down to the half, which is the minimum of the so-called stage mode. Stage mode is 7 watts up to 100 continuous with no sound quality loss. I show you how it sounds on that lower setting. And any kind of power amp is possible to dial in here. Now, if I cross this point at the middle, it switches automatically to the so-called home mode. The home mode gives you 2 watts downwards to 150 milliwatts. And this is kind of living room volume. For some neighbors, this is even too much because, you know, overdriven guitar is not pleasant to any ears. But here we go, 2 watts. Yeah, and now I can even bring it down to 150 milliwatts. I will go back to, let's say, 10 watts. And switch to a vintage channel. So you have both preamp saturation and power amp saturation. This will be a little bit too much, but it sounds very nice and creamy. This is what I like personally a lot. This kind of feature I like very much for recording. On stage I would be a bit careful about that. So you have to know that you will limit your volume with the power soak setting. So I would probably make two banks. One is for this kind of volume and another one for a little bit less. But you have to experiment before you go on stage with this. I see this more as a recording feature and nice to have, which gives you the full sound spectrum of AMP1 and not so much in live situations. Anyway, REMOTE1, the full package for your AMP1. It makes your AMP1 a programmable amp system with many more features. Enjoy.